The red light is on, the TV set comes on. We are here, though it's actually the internet. I keep calling it TV. It's not. Crosby Wright joins us, and he gets the Perseverance Award for making it. I can't tell you how many guys would just blow us off. Though we are pretty high-end media, though, so he felt like he had to get here. Is that right? A little car trouble, but you got here in good shape.
Absolutely. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Oh, I know. You say that in 20 minutes from now. We'll see. Stacey Clarity joins us for segment 3. We booted Kyle off, and that's okay because he's got a couple coaches that will be calling him to talk about Purdue's new offensive coordinator as well at 3 o'clock. Guys, obviously, you guys did the famed exit interview,
yes.
Which has been on the site. But Crosby, I am not surprised you made it here after some car troubles, because you went through a lot to be able to play at this level. I mean, obviously coming in as a walk-on and getting a chance to be a major contributor to the Purdue's football program.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said to Stacey in the next interview, I just feel really blessed that I was given the opportunity, because like you said, coming in, I had no idea whether I was talented enough, whether there would ever be an opportunity for me. And walk-ons don't always have it the easiest.
Yeah.
And so I was just really fortunate to be put in the situation I was, to have learned from some great people, to be coached by some great coaches too, and I couldn't have asked for any more.
Do you have a situation where you say you have to be good enough? Is it truly a case of you can never doubt yourself? Because when you come in as a walk-on, and even if you're an invited one, it's still no one's expecting you to ever make the field. Really, in all honesty, what do you have to tell yourself throughout that whole process?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to perseverance, like you said, because there's obviously frustrating times throughout that where you think you might deserve a chance that you're not getting, or maybe you aren't doing as well as you can be doing. So I think what it comes down to is more of a mindset of perseverance. Is no matter what happens, whether the opportunities aren't there or whether maybe the performance isn't where it should be, everyone goes through growing pains.
Yeah.
The first couple years here. And so I think what it comes down to really in the end is just perseverance.
Yeah.
What are some of those challenges of kind of being a walk-on and then a red shirt? Because I've talked to some guys who are on scholarship but they're redshirting. And that's a really difficult year for a lot of guys when you don't have the games to kind of to look forward to, I guess.
Yeah, it is. Once again, I think my situation's a little bit different. Whereas I was, positive I was going to redshirt coming in.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just happy to, be on the practice field.
Right.
But I think at least when they mature a little bit in terms of their football career, maybe their third, fourth year, I think they really start to appreciate that redshirt year.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see guys. I've had guys tell me when they don't redshirt, they're juniors or seniors, how much they wish they had that extra year,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was to do more on the field here, or whether it's to prepare themselves for the NFL better. That extra year is invaluable, and especially in terms of the mental aspect, in terms of how much it's kind of a progress. I've had some discussions with the coaches about this. It goes from like your first year is kind of a whirlwind. You're just trying to find your place and develop your game, and then each year after that you kind of develop a new skill. Then you kind of start to understand what the offense, or in my case, offense or defense, is doing, and then you kind of start to understand. Well, first is your position. Sorry, I skipped a step.
Yeah.
So whirlwind. First, then you start to understand what you're doing.
Right.
Then you start to understand what your whole unit is doing, and then you start to understand what the opposition is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it's just kind of refining everything.
Right.
And so for me, having that extra year to really learn the mental part of it, and I think for most guys, it's incredibly beneficial, and I usually look back on it fondly, regardless of how frustrating it might be at first.
You don't have a brace on or anything?
I don't. I'm not in a sling right now. I have one of those air cast things that the cooler flows in like ice water.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Because you had the surgery.
say
17?
Thursday?
Yeah.
Week?
No,
Today's
Friday.
Yeah.
My days are all off. I'm not in class. I have no idea what day it is ever. I had the surgery last Thursday.
Yeah. So it's.
Healing up nicely.
Yeah.
I had some great doctors work on me, and get a little follow-up visit early next week. So.
Did you do it all at outpatient, or were you?
It was outpatient. I had one of the athletic trainers, take me down, drive me back, take care of me. So, had her go get me some food before I went home, so I wouldn't have to cook.
Yeah.
That was good. It was very
Wow.
That is
That's top shelf.
that is the
Was.
definition of good.
Yeah.
I would say from that standpoint. You go back and look at.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
There's a comment on here. This has happened more than once when there is a football player on here, and I am on the set as well, that says I have a crush on them. Crosby's a great guy. I really like him, but that's just so inappropriate. Can I say that?
Yes, you may.
Because the same thing happened when Robert Marr was here, too, and this person is just a guest.
Okay. Well,
I'm
I was
upset
going to
about
set the
that.
record. Right.
Please don't do that anymore. It's
Yeah.
really just childish and Stupid.
And it doesn't speak to your professionalism.
Thank you.
Okay.
But I really do like you.
Well, thank you.
But anyway,
Yeah,
that's
but
not
you're
the
okay.
point.
That's okay.
So, okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think
Sorry.
that's a fair
That's
thing, and we need to make those things clear. You look at your situation though, and you had the opportunity to. I think, and Stacy said it in your exit interview, and told me before you came on, the fact of learning the offense and how much the tight end plays into all that in Purdue's offense and in any offense. It truly, did the light bulb come on to you in terms of knowing where you needed to be from a position standpoint, 2 years ago? Does it literally take somebody in that role a couple of years to be able to do that?
It does. And another part that goes along with the redshirting is you're not really studying your own offense. You're doing scout reps. You're running the other team's offense. So you don't get a chance to really get the whole concept down until the spring. Spring practice is hugely beneficial, which is probably obvious. But for me, it kind of followed that curve that I talked about. Last year, I started to understand what everyone on offense was doing. It's kind of like at tight end, we have to understand every position but quarterback, basically.
Yeah.
It's kind of an overlooked position sometimes, that we have to know everything the receivers know, everything the linemen know, and everything that the running backs know. So we basically, our coaches do a good job of teaching that to us, making sure we understand whole concepts instead of just our responsibility. And so last year I started to get that down, kind of what everyone else is doing. So when we're out there and say a running back gets stuck out at receiver, I can tell him what his route is, or if a wide receiver's a running back, vice versa. So it kind of helps to be, I feel like the tight ends are almost a secondary, coach on the field, if you will. You always, the quarterback is the main one, obviously, but, because we understand the whole concepts. And then last year, or this past season, I started to understand more of what the defense is doing to me. I understood what the defense was going to read in terms of what's happening in the backfield or what routes are being ran, how they're going to react, and then use that to my advantage to figure out the best way to beat them. And I feel like that's kind of the last step for a football player in terms of the learning curve in college. And once people can get there, they can start doing some pretty good things on the field.
So where is Gabe Holmes at, do you think, in this whole process? Because we've heard a lot about him. We've seen him. You see the athletic ability that he has. And now I think a lot of fans want it to show up. But it also is about how much you get an opportunity in the games as well, obviously.
It is, true. And the fans don't want it to show up more than Gabe does himself. I want to make sure that's clear. He has a great work ethic. He desires to be great. And I really think he'll achieve it. I mean, he's been a good player for us. He's been a very valuable asset to our team. And, I mean, from the talk of the coaches and, he doesn't talk himself up a whole lot. But from what you hear, I guess fans would maybe have expected him to just be a superstar, maybe on a Dustin Keller level.
Right.
And we haven't received those same number of chances that, the tight ends got back in those days. But he has that ability. He really does. It's not just blowing smoke.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this year, I hope he gets his chances. And, we still have a ton of talented tight ends in that room, and so I'm hoping we, are a pretty prevalent part of the offense because I know they can do some damage.
And obviously he's had injuries as well.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to have you address that as being a guy who knows him really well and has seen him day to day and all of those kind of things.
He has the mental abilities. He desires to be great. He's not missing anything. So I'm just hoping he can put it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you look at that. Do you have, before you have surgery and or before you go to bed at night, and you have dreams or thoughts of that one guy that you're glad that you're never going to have to run into again in the Big Ten? Who is that guy that smacked you that you may have not seen coming, or you saw coming and he really laid you out?
I got a couple. One, I'm going to share a little story I don't think I've shared before. I did a little happy dance around my home when I found out J.J. Watt was declaring for the draft before last season because, Kyle Adams, I have the utmost respect for that guy. He's one of the best blocking tight ends I've ever seen, dominated most everyone he went against, and he struggled a fair amount with J. And as you see, he's an NFL superstar. Right? So I was pretty happy I didn't have to go against him. But I think the players I did go against, both of Illinois' defensive ends, Merciless and Buchanan, were both very talented. They're really athletic and big. Aside from them, Ohio State had some good ends. Oh, if you're talking about hitting hard, I actually got hit pretty good by Harrison Smith last season, or I guess 2 seasons ago now. Notre Dame safety.
Yeah.
And then, I wasn't sure how good he was supposed to be, and I see him, playing in the playoffs for the Vikings, lighting people up. So I don't feel as bad about it now. It was him and Teo, I think, hit me at the same time on a short route. So I'm pretty happy I won't have to deal with that.
We're not getting into Teo and anything because we don't
No.
have anything more to
Sorry
add.
for even mentioning
We don't
that. I
even have
apologize.
anything more to add to that story. But do you sit back and look and say, oh, I think I was number 20, and you know them from scouting reports, you know who they are, I guess. So I guess that's the way that you know it was in fact Harrison Smith, and you watch enough film to go back and say, yeah, that's who that was.
Yeah, and you really know him from the scouting reports. And, the person who I kind of knew him beforehand because Justin Sins knows everything about football.
Yeah.
I mean, you spend every day in meetings with him. He watches so much college football on his own. He could tell me who every player from every other team is, before we even got into the scouting reports. So, you kind of know who they are, especially if they're, a highly thought of player.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting because we all, as observers and then people that I know that are fans, yeah, we all know the players, and you assume the players all know the players, but that sometimes isn't the case. We have a question: Who is the defensive player who Crosby sees taking the next big step up for Purdue next season?
Defensive player.
Putting you in a tough spot there.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously I could talk a lot more about the
Yeah.
offense, but in terms of defense, we have a lot of good players on our scout defense. They helped us a lot this year, show us looks and everything. I mentioned to you Taylor. I think Taylor has that ability. He's already. I don't know what it means necessarily by next step because he's already an established player.
Right.
But Taylor and Frankie are both pretty darn good
Yeah.
defensive backs, and I think the more time Sean Robinson gets to play to at linebacker, I think he's going to be an outstanding player by the time it's over. He has the size, the intelligence, the physicality. He has the mindset you want from a linebacker as well as the physical gifts. So I think he could be an outstanding linebacker very soon.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of grind that goes kind of into the season, but how did you keep it fun? I mean, we got to see a little bit at the end of practice once a week, or beginning of practice once a week when you're stretching, and then you and Peters and Schmieg did this little jump with the Purdue Jacks. You did this little weave kind of thing, which I talked to Peters about the other day, and he kind of laughed about that too. But I mean, obviously, you're young guys. How do you kind of keep it fun and keep it loose?
I think you just try to remember that it's a game.
Yeah.
In the end, football is the game that we love playing, and while it's big time football, playing in the Big Ten, what it comes down to is we play this game because we love it. That's why we started playing when we're kids. That's why we still play today. And if we can remember that, which is not always easy, don't get me wrong, when you're in the grind of 2 days or training camp or a down part of the season, it's not easy. But you have to kind of keep that at the forefront of your mind. That and just let your personality show. Like that,
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with Peters and Schmieg, it's it's silly or whatever, but we're just it's a nice way to have some fun before practice starts, and it just kind of keeps everything light. And actually, one of the times I feel like teams struggle the most is when they're too serious, when they make things out to be bigger than they are,
Right.
or they can be overwhelming. So I think keeping it light, is a definite advantage for a team.
What did the experience of this year? Obviously you had a roller coaster. You had the start where things looked good. You had a really difficult middle part of the year, and then obviously at the end of the year you have a coach and a staff that lose their job. What do you think that experience is going to teach you long term? I mean, in terms of having to go through that, these are all people you cared about very much, and fellow teammates that you cared about in terms of trying to win football games. So what's the takeaway for you, do you think?
I think there's a couple. Like one, I talked about perseverance earlier. While we had some success at the end of the year, it wasn't what we had hoped at the beginning. But at the same time, when we got to that point, when we knew there was 3 games left and we had to win those 3 to make a bowl, we rallied up and we played well and we won. And some people may say, well, the opponents weren't as good. But they were fairly decent opponents compared to some teams that we had struggled with previously.
Yeah.
And especially Iowa and Illinois' defenses were not bad teams. No disrespect to Indiana there, but I just wanted to single out those two.
That's fair. That's a fair thing.
Yeah, and
I'm
so
sure it's a complete disrespect to Indiana.
No, not at all.
yeah, and
None
so,
taken.
You're not playing anymore, you can say.
Yeah, well, like I said, when we got to that point, that's what we had left to work with, and so we could have either shut it down, which a lot of teams have done. You see teams every year just kind of shut it down, and so I'm proud of the fact that we were able to persevere and rally up and win those final 3 games, and that's something I'll never forget. Regardless of the outcome of the bowl game, getting there was pretty special for us. And in regards to the staff being fired, I think it just teaches you firsthand that there are obviously consequences for the results you put out. And I'm going into the business world here pretty soon, and I talked a little bit about that in the exit interview, and that's a good thing to know. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but once it hits you firsthand, then it affects people that you care about. That's kind of ingrained in you even more. So I think that just kind of demonstrated to all of us that there are consequences for the results that we put in.
Yeah. We're down to about a minute and a half, but Stacy, anything else that you want to
And
hit
we
on?
talked about this too, but just the experience that you had here, obviously on the field, you would have liked to have won more games. There's obvious. But the whole experience, you can it's not all about football. I mean, it's so easy to make it all about football, I think. But it's not. I mean, you guys are growing into men when you're here. I mean, you just feel good about how this ended? I guess your whole kind of Purdue experience?
Absolutely. Like, looking back on it, I couldn't have asked for any more. Like I said, I mean, I've built some of the best friendships I could have ever imagined that'll last a lifetime. And you can't put a price on that. We were here to be students, to get a degree, to play football, to win, and to have fun. And I did all of those things. Well, I would have liked to win more, obviously. I mean, you always want to be champions every year. And do I regret, some of the performances we put in? Absolutely. But I don't regret our effort. Coach Higgins had told me at one point, while we were losing, like, we weren't losers. It's kind of I forget the exact words he used, but at the same time, with the effort we put in, if we literally gave it everything we could, we prepared as well as we could, and we went out on game day and gave it our best effort. While some people may say it's a losing mentality or whatever, it allows you to look yourself in the mirror, with dignity and respect.
Right.
So at the same time, we gave everything we could, and I'm really proud of what we accomplished, and I had a blast in my time here, and I couldn't have asked for any more.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the last question. We got a couple questions we haven't gotten to. First, your impression of Darrell Hazel. Do you have a chance to at least be in his presence? But also, will the Boilers make a bowl game this year?
I'm just going to say absolutely to that question.
Okay.
No doubt. I've only spoken to him once or twice, but I've had a great first impression. I mean, my parents, asked me the same thing when I first met him, and from what I know of him, he's a real stand-up guy. Seems like the kind of guy who would, at the same time, care about you and command your respect. So he's a serious guy. I'm sure you guys have talked to him some. Seems like a pretty serious guy, but at the same time, he cares about his players from what I've gathered. So, and I've talked to a lot of friends who are still, playing, obviously, and they all seem really excited. There's a genuine enthusiasm around there right now. I mean, some things are changing in terms of, structure of the program and workouts, and I haven't heard any negative comments at all from anyone I've talked to. Okay. So I'm encouraged about the direction they're going, and they're absolutely going to make a good bowl game next year.
Good. All right, Crosby, thanks so much for your time, and very much appreciated. We know one thing about Crosby: he will be successful. I can see that. If I was going to hire you, you get way up the interview chain. Now, do you have and you're going to have? Do you start that process, or do you? I assume pretty soon. I said I was going to ask another question. Here I'm asking one, but. What, in terms of looking for jobs and those kind of things?
Yeah, I have actually accepted a job with IBM in Chicago.
I should have read the exit interview more.
That's okay.
So I'm going to start. They gave me time to get this operation and heal up, and I think I'm going to start in May. So
if I even read the thing, we had a comment. What will your role for IBM be? What an awesome opportunity.
It's consulting, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that what you said? Yeah.
It is.
Sorry, I answered your question.
You're going to be working like crazy.
I think so, but I'm excited about it.
How exciting for you. So, well, Crosby and Stacy, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back next week, same time, and Crosby's car will be all set by that point in time. Well, maybe not, but we'll look forward to doing that. Crosby, again, thanks again. Thanks again to our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, Follett's Purdue Bookstores, and of course Kim and Lydia and Gordon, all the folks at WLFI that helped put this on. We look forward to joining you again next week. It'll be, the 1st of February by next week, and Purdue may have beaten Indiana in basketball by then. Do you think that's possible? Well, we'll see. We'll have something to talk about next week when the Boilermakers, it's all Purdue all the time here, and we'll look forward to doing that next week on Gold and Black Live.